Hi everyone, I'm Heather Poduska, star maker to entrepreneurs who want to find their authentic voice so they can command any stage. Welcome to Thrive Live, the show where I bring you tips, resources, and people to help you create a more abundant life and business. You're in for high value content coming to you from industry leaders who are growing their businesses, making an impact, and rocking their brands. Today we are live in the studio. We had a little glitch getting started, but we are rolling live here at Thrive Live. And my special guest today is Dianne Bischoff James. Dianne is a best-selling author, speaker, and Life Reboot coach who educates clients in the latest techniques for manifesting and transforming their hearts, their minds, and bodies for optimal, authentic living. Having found herself completely off track, Dianne lost 60 pounds. She left a highly successful but exhausting executive corporate career, rid herself of depression, conquered debilitating health problems, pursued her passion as an actress, navigated a healthy divorce, and survived the perils of an addictive relationship, and went on to co-create a new one, Vital and Real, all after the age of 40. Her book, The Real Brass Ring, was featured on Om Times magazine and voted an Aspire magazine top 10 inspirational book. I am so excited to have Dianne here. I am so grateful that she's being such a great sport to go live for the first time for Thrive. Welcome. Thank you so much, Dianne.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is, and I know that you're going to be able to handle this with aplomb because not only being a best-selling author, you're also an actress, correct?
Yes, I am.
Yes. So we'll have to practice our performance chops and our, this isn't, what is it, Second Street in Chicago?
This is Second City all over again. Yeah.
Second City in Winchester, that's for sure. So tell me a little bit how you've come to New England, you've come to the Boston area from Chicago. What brought you here?
Well, I'm a Life Reboot expert. That's what I position myself, and I had the chance to redo my body, redo my passion area, career, and the last piece on my chart of rebooting my life was to move where I wanted to live. Wow. And when I was 5, my dad went to MIT for about 9 months, and we lived here. And I fell in love with Boston Harbor, the cobblestone streets, Salem, and so I wanted to live here since I was 5. Yeah. So this was my last big move, and we just up and moved in July, and here we are, and I'm really loving it. I love everything about New England, and I love everything about Boston, New Hampshire, Maine, discovering Rhode Island, so I'm having a great time. I'm really happy I did it.
I'm so glad you're here too, because that means there's another Midwesterner in my neighborhood. So and I love New England too, but it's always great to have that connection. So tell us what a Life Reboot expert is.
Well, what I specialize in is big picture living. I like to help people get on track, find their life's work, create their authentic voice, speak their piece, and live their passion, and recraft, transmute, and transform their lives, but using all 4 quadrants: mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical. So very integrated approach.
That's great. So how would you describe each of those areas? What a reboot would look like in each of those areas?
Well, it's a great question, so thanks for asking that. The first area, for example, would be physical. And physical, you would think the physical plane of existence. Some people would think, well, that's just the body. Well, that's part of it, but the also part of the physical is how you're actively showing up in your own life. So we take a look at all aspects of that. This is a physical reality, and what we have to do is hold ourselves accountable and realistic about what we can accomplish towards our complete, I like to say, your life's work, what it is you came here to do. On the emotional aspect, what I usually do is I help my clients, I look at how they're functioning, not only in relationships, about how much they love themselves, how much they're in connection with others, how fully supported they feel, and also a part of that is how fully expressed they are. Because very often what people have, and what I've found over time, is that it's the secrets that keep us down. It's the parts which are inauthentic. It's when you're keeping not only a secret on yourself, but you're keeping a secret from others and not really living your full truth. That's when the emotional aspect gets really off track. And then we have the mental plane. And the mental plane isn't really just what you think about, but it's your work. It's what you're engaged in. What is your the most amount of time that you spend? What are you working on? Is it things towards your passion area? Is it things that you just love to do? Things that are using your gifts? Or are you just doing a job that you hate, which I get a lot of. And then on the spiritual aspect, it really has a lot to do with how fully connected are you to your intuition, to source, and to really just all the guidance that we have that we can't see. So it really takes a lot of the Eastern side of life and the Western side of life, and I like to do a full package and work with clients on all 4 areas and help them really get all of them, as I like to say, at an 8 or higher. Because in a perfect world, we'd be rocking on in the mental plane, rocking on in the physical plane, fully connected and emotionally feeling great about everything. And spiritually, we'd be getting our intuition and working with our guides all the time. And so I put people on both a quantitative analysis in many cases, and also very much we analyze and then we do plans to actually get each of those moving at a much higher level, and lots of very deep work. And the most important part that I found that people really love is, if they're not on an 8 or above, typically there's a block involved. That usually goes way back, usually oftentimes in childhood. There very often could be an issue, trauma, something happened with an authority figure that didn't go the way you wanted it to. Your needs weren't met, and therefore we block ourselves. It could be emotionally, we could block ourselves by eating too much and have addictions. We could block ourselves by never listening to our own intuition and thinking that no one's ever going to help me, there is no support from the universe. And a lot of times we block ourselves in our work, thinking, especially if we have a passion towards something that isn't practical, I can't do that. My parents said I'll never succeed. So then we go and do a job that is killing us. Maybe we hate, maybe we can do it in our sleep, but we just don't love it. And we spend way too much time doing the shoulds instead of the I love it part.
Yeah, who wrote the book? Is it the one thing they talk about? No, it was The Big Leap. They talk about the zone of competence, the zone of excellence, and what I hear you saying is people get stuck in that zone of competence. They're good at something, but they don't necessarily love it, and then they're not fulfilled.
Absolutely. I think I call us soldiers. We've been following a lot of instructions since we were kids about what we were supposed to do, this whole American dream of, as I like to say, getting big money. I used to have the mini mansion across from Lake Michigan and did everything I could to get the possessions and get the cute shoes and have the right car and whatever it is that I thought I was supposed to get. Well, I got it. But I was so miserable. I was 190 pounds. I was taking Prozac every day because I could barely get out of bed. I was following the kids around and doing the helicopter parenting and making sure, even though I had a full-time job in my own company, I was there at lunch duty, and I was also doing the PTA and cheerleading coach and everything, and I was killing myself. And the truth is that I was absolutely and completely miserable. So I went after what I thought I was supposed to do, and at the end of the day, I like to say I was outed by a psychic.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I talked to Sonia Choquette, and who is a very well-known intuitive psychic and a counselor, and she's part of the Hay House group now. So back then she had a couple of books under her belt. Now she has like 15 books, and so she's very, very well respected. But I went to see her very early on, and she said, "All right, sister, I got some messages for you." She's like, wrong man, wrong career, wrong passion, wrong location. She's like, you're smothering your children, and you're supposed to be an actor, an author, a teacher, and a healer, and you're not doing any of it. And this was on my 38th birthday when I thought that I was,
You're like,
happy
birthday
to me.
I
was like, happy birthday.
Oh my gosh.
So pretty much in a nutshell, she said, everything about your life is wrong. You've done nothing right. And if you don't hurry up and grab at the real brass ring, it's going to be too late for you. And I sat there for an hour, and I paid for this, by the way.
Paid to be tortured by the psychic.
Yes,
oh
exactly.
My gosh.
And kind of like, okay, and good luck with that. And then the session ended, and I had no plan. I mean, how do you redo everything and have 3 young children and this big house and a career and my own consulting firm? How do you start over and go into these, softer areas? Like healer, actor, okay, great. And so I think because of getting a good swift kick in the seat of the pants, she woke me up. That was my lowest point, I think, of my entire life, because I didn't know how to start everything over again.
Can I ask you, when she said that, did it resonate with you? Were you like, because if something doesn't resonate with you, you might be like, okay, thank you. But if it resonates, you have a different response. Did that resonate with you? Did you have a feeling about it?
Well, I could barely hold back the tears. It was kind of like someone found all your deep, dark, dirty secrets and put them out on a table and then knocks them in front of you and said, what are you going to do about it? So it was really hard because there was no plan. There was no, what do you do with that? So I think in a way it was really good for me because it forced me to make that my mission. So my mission is to help others transmute, transform, and enliven their lives so that they don't have to do that. The other thing that you can usually tell on the physical plane, I mean, I was 190 pounds. So I found love in the hostess family.
Well, they are very loving. They are very loving.
Yeah, they're a good group, especially the ding dongs. They were my favorite part of the family. And so I was just looking for sweets and treats, anything that gave me that 1 minute of, you're okay. Of course, that's not the way you should do it. And I had a huge food addiction and went to OA and Overeaters Anonymous, and I did everything, but I still was finding food was my only source of love. So I had to take all that down, take a real hard look at it, and clearly medication. At that time, you know, if you don't feel good, you go to the doctor. And I was saying, look, you know, I can't get out of bed. There's this like dark cloud over me and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, feel terrible. And the doctor's like, I have a solution. Here's a pill. Take this pill every day and you're going to feel great. Well, that was the one thing Sonia said. She goes, I'm going to tell you a secret. She's like, no one is saying this to you, but you're numbingly, chronically, and clinically depressed.
Wow.
So I think our bodies, after a while, after you are off track so badly and in so many areas, the body is screaming, like, pay attention to me. I'm giving you signals. There's things that you need to do that are different. And so the day after I saw her, that was it. I went cold turkey. I said, I'd rather feel bad and be crying on the side of the street than to feel nothing.
Yeah.
Because when you're all numbed up, it's not a solution. It's a nice little Band-Aid sometimes if you have a big trauma or there's something you need to recover from. But that did me absolutely no favors.
Yeah, and that's not to say that sometimes medication isn't the most appropriate choice. Sometimes that is. Sometimes people need to reset their brain chemistry, and but it's not for everybody. And sometimes I think doctors,
when it goes on for over a year.
Yeah, when you haven't tried other possibilities. So one question that I have, and also I want to remind everybody that we're live, so if you have questions for Dianne about her transformation or about the different quadrants and how to get aligned, the mental, the spiritual, the physical, and the emotional. I mean, we're on Facebook Live, so if you have a question, just type it on in, and we'll try to manage the technology and the audience and the interview all at the same time. So one of the questions that I have about that is, you said you were 190 pounds, you were shut down completely, you were numb, but you don't just land there. Those things sort of accumulate. So what can someone do? I heard an interview recently where they were talking about how can we tend to turn red flags into pink flags.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, that we don't really want to see them as red flags, so that we make them pretty and we say, that's just a pink flag. That's not really a red flag. So how can we start to recognize those red flags before they become emergencies or complete meltdown or complete numbing?
Well, I think one of the key things to remember is that we always have the answers within. We know what the truth is deep within, even if it's kind of buried and it's been shoved down for a long time. So intuitively, our bodies are intelligent, our souls are always trying to speak to us, and emotionally, we're very, very, very intelligent beings. So I always say, go back to the radar detector.
Which is
that little beep, 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 that little feeling inside, either something is off, something is wrong. Notice your own feelings. Our greatest connection to Source comes through our emotional body. And that connection to Source is trying to communicate with us all the time. So how you feel, as I always say, being happy matters.
Yes.
And so, I know that sounds so simple, but I was taught, I came from a really, my dad was ex-military, my mom was kind of this soft, malleable person who really never had a voice. And so we were trained to follow the rules, kind of, shut up and put it, as I say, under the rug. Shove it under the rug. If you don't like something, just be quiet about it. Don't say anything. If you don't want to go somewhere, show up anyway. If you don't like what's on your plate, eat it. I got that message. Eat everything.
Well, I want to hear the rest of your answer, but as a parent, sometimes those things are necessary. Like, you have to do your homework. You have to brush your teeth. There are things that you have to force yourself to do that in the moment you might not want to do, but in the bigger picture, they serve you.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really good point. If you went free willy-nilly and you never had, the truth is, here's a funny aspect. You want to go all the way?
Let's go all the way.
Let's go all the way. Okay, we're here, we're live. You don't really have to do anything. Okay, now, I don't like to necessarily share that with my kids because you could, in theory, and I like to share this with my clients sometimes, because in theory, you could just hang out in bed all day, not get up. Yes, you need water, you need some food, you need a place to sleep and a roof over your head. All of which they provide for you in prison, by the way. If you want to think about it, you could live in a little cell, you could live in a space. I don't think that after a day or so of that, we usually don't feel like that's an integrity. So I always like to go back to what's an integrity. If you're doing that for too long, you're not creating, we are here to create, so we're not being creators.
Right.
And we also are not looking at this big picture living.
Right.
So if you don't go to school, let's say, you don't want to go to school. The kid doesn't want to go to school, wants to go to school, right? Yeah. And you don't want to study, and you don't want to get good grades. Well, there is at the end of the road, there will be a consequence to everything that we do.
Right.
And that consequence is something that I like to talk about in integrity. So if you really want to go to a good school later on, which we know colleges are becoming extremely competitive, you have to really think about that all the way through. And like I say to my kids, we want to go into the kid area, which is very tricky. Because they're like, Mom, I don't really have to get up or go to school. I'm
we
like,
won't tell them when this is airing. We won't tell them that this is live.
Well, I say, yeah, but at the end of the day, my kids very much so want to go to college that they enjoy. They very much so want to get a career that they enjoy.
Right.
And so they only have one job, really, except to maybe take the dishes. Please take the dishes out of the dishwasher. That might be it, and put your clothes away. Other than that, the job is really to do the best you can in school.
Right.
And so we try to reframe it so that is their job. That's where you're supposed to make your investment while you're there during that time. And so later on, when I was referring to the beep, 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 the beep, beep, beep is more your emotional sensors going off saying, this isn't a fit for me. I'm not enjoying this. My love it index is really low on this job. And that's okay for a while, as long as you're also looking at the areas of your life which do produce tremendous passion and joy. Those are the ones that get your emotional vibration higher. So in a perfect world, if we said all four quadrants are rocking on, you got mental, emotional, spiritual, physical, and you're giving yourself, Heather, you get like a 9 because you're doing everything you love to do, and you're out there and you're exploring new things for yourself, you're learning, you're growing, you're feeling very supported and loved. Well, you really are having the fullest, greatest intention for this lifetime. That would be, just so you know, I've talked to people all over the country, and I always go through this analysis with them, kind of that baseline measure, and guess how many people actually have had high marks in all four quadrants?
Well, I'm going to guess it's pretty low, and probably really low to have all four quadrants at the same time rocking. So what's the number?
1.
What?
1 person.
Wow.
And this is 15 states and hundreds and hundreds of people. And I had this one woman come to see me in Milwaukee. And she was older. She was a beautiful woman. And she just sat down in my chair. I go to a lot of the expos, and she came to see me. And I said, okay, well, let's put you on the quadrant. Let's see how you're doing. And so she was a breast cancer survivor, and she had just passed all of her tests, and she felt amazing. Okay, so she was so grateful to be alive, on the physical plane. And on her emotional plane, she had reconnected with her family. She had said, and really got clear about the fact that she wasn't the perfect mom, but she loved them so much, and so she was spending more time with her grandkids. And she had a couple of fun clubs. She liked to go out and listen to live music, and she liked to go to the casino. Something she loved. It made her, she's little slots.
Whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, whatever got her excited. And then she was doing great. She felt like her intuition was so strong that she was getting constant messages and guidance about how to function and how to be a really good contributor to other people. And then she was also doing the work she liked. She contributed to this little place called the Bargain Basket, and she was one of these very simple requirements, and she was in gratitude and appreciation about everything. And she was, probably in her early 70s, And she said, my life is awesome. I can't really imagine very simple requirements, but everything about it makes me feel good. My vibration is so high. And so I kind of sat there and said, bless you, you're so sweet and you're so wonderful to be here. And so I was just grateful to meet her.
Yeah.
And so it was like a different kind of session. And then we talked about other things and her daughter. And I was able to help her kind of reframe a little bit about how her daughter didn't feel the same way. Her daughter had some things that didn't happen the way she wanted growing up. And so we talked a lot about tapping. And I get into tapping quite a bit.
So for people who don't know what tapping is and why it's useful. So that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. So we're out of balance. One of our quadrants or more than one of them isn't working. Maybe we've touched into that and we feel that, but we don't know how to get out of it, how to shift it. So some of the techniques that you've developed, and can you share some of those and what tapping is and how it works?
Absolutely, absolutely. And typically, just so you know, people are usually high on 2, low on 2, or medium to low on 2. Okay. And I think that that's normal.
Are there 2 that are normally higher?
This is what's so funny. With everybody, it's different.
Oh, okay.
So it reminds me of the game Foursquare. Do you remember when we were kids? And we used to play that, and there's 4 squares. Yeah. And for some reason, it's either these two, it could be any combination. Yeah. And that's because everybody's life lesson is different. Everybody's life purpose is different. Everybody's major contribution is different. And we're all learning at different levels. Yeah. So the funny part and the nice part is when you can see where your areas aren't quite high enough, like let's say it's emotionally, I don't feel supported. And that's a question I usually ask people, do you feel supported? And that could be from friends, significant other, it doesn't matter, but in life, are you supported? And they'll say no. Well, that oftentimes goes back to a childhood issue where someone said either you're not worthy of being supported, you're not ever going to get somebody to back you up, you're not important. And that message kind of got inside. So they don't find support from the outside world. The universe isn't safe, so how could I get supported? So a technique that's really helpful, and it's tapping, and literally tapping. You take a couple fingers and you go to certain parts of your body that are aligned with your actual chakras, and they're also aligned with your key meridians. And one of them's here. I'm just going to demonstrate a little bit and you go to the side of your eye, you go under your eye, and this one strangely feels really good, right above your lip. And you go here, and then you tap through your cord. We have an energetic cord right here, and you tap on the other side. And the nice thing about this is I immediately, at least for me, I feel like I'm getting that, like when you get a hug and you get that like tap and that rock? That's what it feels like to me.
Well, aren't those sort of acupuncture points too, some of them?
They are, but they're key meridians, and each one aligned to a different meridian. This in particular aligns with shame. So when you're feeling like, did I do something wrong? Have I been a bad girl? Oh my gosh, I don't have any food in the house. I'm tapping all the time. But you can even do it. Funny, you can do it while you're standing in line sometimes at the bank or whatever, and people don't know what you're doing, you know? And so if I just want to calm down, or if I'm driving, I'm like, wow, this is the slowest driver ever in front of me. If you tap a little bit, it can automatically, you start to sink. You start to sink and you can feel more support.
So was that one of the techniques you used to lose weight and release some of the toxic feelings that you were having? And
yes, it is, but what I like to offer is this special technique. I call it Mind Tap. It takes about an hour and a half, and there's a full script with it. And we get into and cut right down to the chase. What happened to you when you're younger that actually created that particular issue? Most of us have about 6 big issues in our life. And I believe we're here to address them. We're here to get rid of them. Wouldn't it be nice if they were gone? So I'll give you an example. I had this wonderful woman come to me in Chicago, and she was having, she just lost her parent, her mother, and she was in grief. She also was in a job she hated, great husband. So here, like job bad, husband's great. She was not sure if she was into her intuition, and emotionally she was kind of not sure, especially because she was functioning in grief. So in this process, we go through for over an hour and walk through the script. What she realized, and the reason that she was so stuck in grief, is that her mom had said, "You're my good little girl. You're my youngest. You're here for me. You're my little girl." And what happened is she got so stuck at being the good little girl that she wasn't being herself.
It's hard to be a woman if you're a little girl.
Right. And also, if you have to be a good little girl, you better be a people pleaser. You better always say yes. You better do what you're supposed to do. Kind of shut up, show up, and just just do it. And so she was living under that as a very big life lesson. And so in this process, where it takes an hour and a half, and we just worked on it. We went back to the time when that was the most. It was oftentimes the kids, we aren't even able to filter until after 14. So we're under concrete operations until 14.
What does that mean, we're not able to filter until we're 14?
Piaget, all the early child development psychologists, going way back to the 70s, they've known this for a long time. There are certain phases of development. So children hear messages that come in as fact.
Yes.
And the concrete phase goes on until 12, 13, 14, where if somebody said, you're never going to make it, let's just say that was the message, or who cares what you have to say? Who cares what you think? Those messages kind of come in and they resonate and they become part of your emotional body and your cellular layer, where they'll say, I'm never going to make it. Those people very frequently deal with having trouble with money, having trouble being successful, because that message is so strong that they really can't release it. And so you kind of prove it throughout your whole life. Yeah, I'm always struggling. No, they passed me up for the job. No, I didn't get the promotion. Well, we go in and clear that up with the mind tap. And then people usually sit and they'll say, after I'm done, you feel like you're floating. And I've had clients come and say, what did you do to me? I'll be like, I just took a thorn that's been in your side for 30, 40 years, and we got rid of it.
That's amazing.
And then you can create as a available creator, not somebody who's stuck and in the goo. Your feet aren't being held.
Yeah, so I want to ask you a question, because we are fortunate to live in a community where a lot of people have the resources and the time to be involved in a lot of things. And it's so wonderful. It's such a blessing for our families, for our community. How do you show up to serve, to be a giver, to be available without overgiving, without giving away your identity as a whole person to being in the role of caretaker, of server, of volunteer, and making sure that you're creating healthy boundaries as a human, as a woman, as a dad, as a man, and being of service? Because I think that joy, that real deep joy, comes from serving. It absolutely does. That piece of integrity that you were talking about, of being in integrity with yourself and also showing up to serve with your gifts. But I just want to address that piece of, because you mentioned it before when you were living your life as a wife in Chicago, of being there for every ballet lesson and being, the mom that's making the cookies and showing up. And how do you balance that, or make sure that you're not red flagging? That you're not putting a pink flag on a red flag.
Great question. I look at it as a personal formula, and I think we all have personal formulas. And these personal formulas are something we get to decide. So it really combines the integrity with boundaries and what works for you. So just an example, we went to private school, and every other week there was another thing to do. One day it was poinsettias, and the next day we had to bring in shoes, and then we had to bring in crayons, and then we all had to do the cookies. And every week,
my shoulders are getting tighter.
Every week I was like, if I see one more email about what else I have to do on top of everything else. And they expected, there was an unspoken rule that all the good parents do this. And there were very few who would not comply. Well, what happened is I was going through this emerging saying, yes means yes and no means no. And this was a personal development issue for me. I used to say yes to everything. So I started asking myself, and you can just check in with yourself, do I want to do it? Does this feel right to me? And is this something I'm going to feel good about contributing? I like to say, do it with love, or don't do it at all. And so what happened is I was feeling the crunchies every time I had to do the next thing. And so I actually came forward and spoke, probably the only person in the whole school, and I said, look, I want to contribute the way that feels good to me. So I decided to be the cheerleading coach. I was also the volleyball coach, because I love the kids and I love working with them. Now, granted, I used to do cheerleading, so that was good. I didn't really know volleyball, but I was willing to learn. And so I wanted to give my time in a way that just got that yummies going, and my vibration was high and I loved it. And then I decided I'm not going to do any of the other things. And I'm talking any of them. If I don't want to show up to the fundraising event, I wasn't going to do it because I couldn't do it and do it with I didn't want to be fake anymore.
Right.
But I had to go all the way because I was so much in this camp of yes to everything, no to zero. So I had to move back to I'm not going to do it unless I love it. And now I'm somewhere in the middle where I kind of decide, is this a contribution I want to make? Is this something I can do and like put my real happy face on? Or is it something that really gets me like that super elated? Because there's the 14 shortcuts I put together in the book, The Real Breast Ring, 14 shortcuts for happy living. And one of them, and one of the key shortcuts, is about managing your wave. So we're all beings of light, and light moves like this, right? You know, it's in a sine wave. And that's how in a perfect world, if you put a line right through it, we function at neutral to positive. Okay, you go a little bit, you know, and not everything happens great, right? You know, there's the day where, I got the parking ticket. Not my favorite, but you do sometimes get a parking ticket. And then you have the day where someone called you and invited you to do, like, to be here with you today. That was a real high for me.
Yeah, that was like up here, right?
Yeah, it was way up here. That was like super high. And I loved it, you know. And then you know, so it's that neutral to positive, and it's about how do you manage your feeling, your essence, your truth, your voice, speaking your piece, and how do you keep that in a really nicely functioning environment? And what the beauty of it is when you are functioning at like neutral, I always say neutral to positive because I don't think we're all like, rah, you know, like every day isn't like, I don't know about you, but every day is not jazz.
Well,
for me.
if you're always like that, then you have no comparison, right? I mean, if you don't have the lows, you don't know what the high feels like. You have a Prozac life, right?
Yeah, you have a Prozac life. Well, that's actually just pure neutral because you know you're kind of like I was like a stone. You know, you feel nothing. But I think it's a contrast. Exactly what you said. You know, a little high, a little low, little high, little low, and how to keep your household. And this is the beauty as a parent.
Yeah.
When the parents are keeping really neutral to positive, I think the entire household resonates as neutral to positive. And then you have less of those, and this is the kind of wave you don't want. That's like the rageaholic, and I came from a rageaholic household where everything's fine, and then there was like this raging, and we wouldn't know when to expect it, we wouldn't know what happened. So kids try to protect and make sure the environment, they would prefer a neutral to happy household. And so it put us on eggshells all the time. And I think that's a lot of where the people pleasing comes, and trying to be kind of those codependent behaviors where you're like, are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? Let me get you something. Did you eat? Or as my mom would say, it's not important that I eat, it's that you eat. Would you like my food? No, Mother, I've got a plate full of food right here. No, you, here, take my bread.
No guilt there.
No. Take my bread, take my, you know, and so I'm like, I have bread, thank you. But that was her way of trying to always make sure it was about the other guy.
Yeah.
So another key thing from the 14 shortcuts, it's kind of a really helpful tool. And everybody loves this one. Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
It's okay. So if you could put your arms out, I'm going to do this even on the TV show, okay? And then you kind of spin just a little bit. Okay, we have this circle, and it's basically about a foot extending past your hand.
Okay.
And right above your head, just a little bit. And it goes into the ground a little bit.
Like your personal bubble?
It's your circle.
Okay.
That's the only thing in your entire life that you need to manage. And it doesn't mean you don't contribute. It doesn't mean you don't take care of your children and people who are, you know, have a great relationship with your significant other. What it means is that when your vibrational, your energy, your emotion, and all of those feelings are really revved up in there, you're like a magnet that helps others. Your light's shining, your bubble's high, everything's bright, and others are not only feed off of it, but are attracted to you, and they learn from that. So our entire job is just to get out of everybody else's circle, stay in yours, and get yourself feeling so good, because that's the greatest gift you can give to somebody else.
And I also heard another thing about the bubble is that you stay in your bubble, people don't get to come into your bubble, and you don't go out of your bubble. And then as long as you manage that's everybody's, you know, their bubbles are bumping up into each other, but it's not invading, and you're not going out of your power, and you're not being, you know, crowded by someone else's energy too. So I really like that.
No, it's such a great point. Actually, I get asked that all the time. Does your bubble intersect with another bubble? And the answer is no. You can have like an energy, you know, your vibrational energy does extend past your circle, so you can influence others. Have you ever noticed, like, if you have like a person that you do talk to often, but you feel like completely down, defeated, and as if you want to crawl after you've had that conversation. Well, they've taken your nice little energy and they put an ambient wave across of it, and it will flatten it. It will flatten it, or it can actually lower it.
Wow.
So if you have others who are not staying in their own circle and they want to focus on the negativity or any of the downside of life, there really is no value add to that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something if you want to address it for a minute and feel your feelings, of course. But whenever people get into a conversation, it's like, what, do you see what she had on? Can you believe she even came wearing that? Everybody actually goes down into like a darker tunnel, almost like a little bit of a black hole, and your vibration immediately gets shut down, because we know that that's not a positive, enlivened thing to do subconsciously. So we don't feel good when people start to diss or start to complain. It's okay to hear it, it's okay to process it, but at the end of the day, you want to kind of brighten it back up. So I notice if I ever do, I try not to do that, but sometimes if I'll start to say, well, so-and-so, I'll be like, okay, Diane, that's just not healthy.
Yeah.
And so you can catch yourself and start to focus, because once that wave is moving and it's really on that higher platform, we feel better.
Right. And I think another thing is having understanding what your values are, what your personal mission is, and what your values are. And then you can say, is this in alignment with my personal mission?
Absolutely.
Is this activity guiding me towards my personal goal in life, my personal values? Is it aligning with my values? I mean, I talk to my kids about that all the time. What are your top values? Is your activity aligned with that? Are the people you're associating with aligned with your values? That's, it's the point, as a brand strategist, that's the point of your brand arrow.
Right.
It's your values. And if you're finding that feeling of discontent or disalignment inside, you check, am I out of alignment with my values?
Exactly. And I love that you're having those conversations with your kids, because that is the future world, in an ideal world that I would love to be a part of. We would all have these conversations with our kids, and we would also be focusing on the issues of integrity.
Yes.
And also, sometimes, now my kids use my stuff against me all the time, so you got to be a little careful, because they'll say, Mom, my formula would not include going out with you to a movie, because I'd love to go out with my 15-year-old boy to see a movie. And he looks at me like he said, only if you were sitting in a different theater. I'm like, I get it. For him, it's embarrassing.
Right.
Even though, of course, I love him and love to spend time with him. For him, he's trying to use my words to say, that doesn't work for me. And I get it.
But thank goodness he's practicing that with you.
All the time.
Yes.
And he'll say, even if we say, let's clean it up. Sometimes, like everybody else, you lose it. Yeah. Or you get too frustrated.
Right.
And although I couch it and say, well, okay, I'm going to get mad, that just made me mad, which to me usually is something that's like someone deliberately did to mess with me. Then I'll be like, okay, and then I'll say, let's clean it up. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's sit down. And then, so he uses those words, let's clean it up.
That's good.
Which is, let's not let any of that emotional residue continue on, so that it's over. When it's over, it's over, instead of the whole, I used to fester. I mean, we have a family of festers. And so the festering doesn't get you anywhere. All it does is keeps that emotional, I say a bruise, you got your emotional layer and it got a hit. Somebody did something and hurt your feelings. So it hurts. So
as we're finishing up, and we want to keep that vibration high, what are 3 quick, easy things that we can all do if we find one of our quadrants sagging, that we can get that energy up, that we can bring those all back into balance?
Okay. One of the fastest and easiest ways to do that is to focus on an I love it inventory. Okay. If you can say, I love whatever, and mean it, that's what you should be spending your time on. At least 15 minutes a day.
I love ice cream.
Yeah.
I love ice cream.
that in moderation, everything's great.
Okay.
But if you could say, okay, I love to walk in the fells. Okay, I do. Okay. And when I get there, the world stops, it's beautiful. And so that 15 minutes changes my vibration. Okay. Completely.
So something you focus completely on something you love.
Completely. The second thing is to be very aware of what's in your personal integrity. Okay. Am I out of integrity with myself? Love that question. Because most of us, when we go, you know what? I had the entire pint of Ben & Jerry's. Okay. Is that integrity with myself? Right. Okay. Probably not. Right? So really check in with yourself about what is in integrity, okay? And then the other part that really helps people get enlivened is connection.
I love that.
Yeah, and so at the end of the day, the happiest people in this world have turned out to be the ones who actually have the highest level of connection with others. And that could be as simple as just truly listening. So you can be connected with your friends, you can be connected with your spouse, your partner, your children, but to take that 15 minutes during the day, and I like to say, I let my energy circle will sit with their energy circle, and I make sure I spend time at least every day with the kids, even if I'm just in the same room and we're doing something similar, or we're just making sure we got that little bit of, I'm here with you.
Right.
Completely. I'm really here and I'm really listening to you and I care. Right. So those are the 3 things that will really kind of keep you up and in a higher place.
So focus on something that you love, connection. What was the third one?
Stay in integrity.
Stay in integrity. Great. So we're going to wrap up, but where can people find out more about you? How can they support you? How can we support you? Is there a website? Is there a way to get your book? How can we help you?
Well, my website is Dianne.net. That's 2 N's and an E.
Okay.
Dianne.net. And the book is called The Real Brass Ring.
The Real Brass Ring.
And it has like 106 5-star reviews, so people are really enjoying it. It's a very fun, fast read.
Yes, and I've read 99% of it. So.
And it's a little bit like Eat, Pray, Love, and it's just like this crazy journey of all these stories and how to avoid addictive personalities and how to go through change and incorporate these 14 shortcuts. So I think that people are finding it to be very helpful. And if you'd like to actually take a look at your quadrants and get your mind tapped so that you're all free and clear of any patterns, just find me on the web at Dianne.net, and I'd love to be there for you.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing your bubble with my bubble. And I know that we were a little technically challenged with Facebook Live, but if you're watching live and you have a question for Dianne, just type it in, the comments, and we'll go back later and you can answer some of the questions later, and we'll put the URL in there. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. We might try this again live, the Thrive Live. If you like it, let me know. Put it in the comments. And until next time, here's to hitting all your high notes. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.